A woman desperate for a job knocked on the wrong hotel door and came face to face with one of the wealthiest entrepreneurs in the country. What happened next would change both their lives forever, proving once again that sometimes our biggest mistakes lead to our greatest blessings. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. It was a crisp autumn morning in the bustling city of Westbrook. The leaves were turning golden, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of coffee from nearby cafes. For most people, it was just another Monday, but for Eleanor Mitchell, it was possibly the most important day of her life. Eleanor clutched her worn portfolio tightly against her chest as she made her way through the gleaming lobby of the Parkview Grand Hotel. At 34, she wasn't where she'd expected to be in life. A series of unfortunate events had left her nearly broke, desperately seeking any opportunity to turn things around. "7th floor, room 723, she muttered to herself, repeating the room number like a prayer as she stepped into the elevator. The advertisement had been specific: an interview for an executive assistant position with a respectable salary and benefits. She couldn't afford to mess this up. The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing a long, carpeted hallway. Eleanor smoothed down her only professional outfit, a navy blue blazer she'd bought 5 years ago when her life had been on a different trajectory. Back when she'd been a rising marketing coordinator, before her company downsized, before her mother's illness drained her savings, before everything fell apart, her heart pounded as she counted the room numbers: 719, 721, 723. Taking a deep breath, she knocked firmly on the door, summoning all the confidence she could muster. The door swung open, and Eleanor's practiced greeting died on her lips. Standing before her wasn't the middle-aged hiring manager she'd expected, but a tall man with piercing blue eyes and salt and pepper hair. He wore an impeccably tailored suit that probably cost more than her rent. "Can I help you?" he asked, his expression curious rather than annoyed. Eleanor glanced down at the email on her phone, confusion washing over her. "I'm here for the interview with Horizon Enterprises. Room 723? The man leaned against the doorframe. "This is room 732. You've got the numbers transposed." The realization hit Eleanor like a wave of cold water. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment. After all her preparation, all her hope, she'd made such a simple mistake. "I'm so sorry to have disturbed you," she stammered, already backing away. "Wait," the man said, his voice gentle but commanding. "What position are you interviewing for?" "Executive assistant," Eleanor replied, wondering why he cared. Something flickered in the man's eyes. Interest, perhaps, or amusement. "I'm actually in need of an assistant myself. My last one quit rather suddenly. Would you like to come in? We could talk." Eleanor hesitated. This wasn't the plan. This wasn't the safe, structured interview she'd prepared for. But something in the man's expression seemed genuine, and frankly, she was in no position to turn down any opportunity. "I'm Gabriel Whitaker," he said, extending his hand. Eleanor's eyes widened slightly. Even she recognized that name. Gabriel Whitaker was the founder of Whitaker Innovations, a technology company valued at billions. His face had graced the covers of business magazines. What were the odds? "Eleanor Mitchell," she replied, shaking his hand firmly despite her nerves. Gabriel stepped aside, inviting her into a suite that was larger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city, and minimalist furniture in rich leather and dark wood spoke of wealth without ostentation. "Please, sit," Gabriel said, gesturing to a comfortable chair at a small conference table. "Would you like some coffee?" "Water." "Water would be nice, thank you," Eleanor said, still trying to process this unexpected turn of events. As Gabriel poured water from a crystal decanter, Eleanor noticed the suite was littered with signs of work: open laptops, documents spread across surfaces, and a whiteboard covered in what looked like product development notes. "I'm in town for a technology conference," Gabriel explained, noticing her gaze. "My team is launching a new product line next month, and my assistant quitting couldn't have come at a worse time." He placed a glass of water before her. "So tell me, Eleanor, What makes you think you'd be a good executive assistant? Eleanor took a sip of water, buying herself a moment to collect her thoughts. This wasn't the interview she'd prepared for, but she needed to adapt. I'm organized, detail-oriented, and I thrive under pressure. I was a marketing coordinator for 5 years at Meridian Publishing before they downsized. Since then, I've been freelancing and taking temporary positions, but I'm looking for something more stable. Gabriel nodded, his expression unreadable. And why were you applying for a position with Horizon Enterprises? They're a mid-sized company with limited growth potential. The question caught Eleanor off guard. Honestly, because they were hiring and I need a job. The past 2 years have been challenging. My mother was diagnosed with cancer, and I became her caregiver while trying to keep my career afloat. After she passed away 6 months ago, I was left with medical debts and a gap in my resume that's been difficult to explain to potential employers. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. She hadn't meant to be so candid, but something about Gabriel's direct gaze made her feel she couldn't get away with the polished half-truths she'd prepared. Gabriel was silent for a moment, studying her. I appreciate your honesty. Most people would have given me a rehearsed answer about how Horizon's values align with theirs. Eleanor managed a small smile. I've learned that pretending things are better than they are rarely helps in the long run. A philosophy many could benefit from, Gabriel said, leaning back in his chair. Let me be equally frank. I need someone exceptional. Someone who can think on their feet, manage complex schedules, handle sensitive information discreetly, and anticipate problems before they arise. It's a demanding position with long hours, but the compensation reflects that. Eleanor straightened her posture. I understand, and while I may not have experience as an executive assistant specifically, I'm a quick learner, and I'm not afraid of hard work. Gabriel's phone buzzed with a message. He glanced at it and frowned. Excuse me for a moment, he said, standing and moving to the other side of the suite to make a call. Eleanor could hear fragments of his conversation, something about production delays and investor concerns. She noticed a document on the table before her, a presentation with notes scribbled in the margins. Several of the comments referenced contradictory data points that would undermine the presentation's impact. When Gabriel returned, his expression was tense. I apologize for the interruption. Where were we? Instead of continuing with her qualifications, Eleanor took a risk. Mr. Whitaker, I couldn't help noticing that the Q3 figures in your presentation don't align with the projected growth mentioned on page 7. It creates a contradiction that might raise questions from investors. Gabriel's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He reached for the document, flipping between the pages she'd referenced. You noticed this just now? Eleanor nodded, suddenly worried she'd overstepped. I'm sorry if that was presumptuous. Presumptuous? Gabriel laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his serious demeanor. 3 people on my team reviewed this presentation, and no one caught the discrepancy. He studied her with newfound interest. What else do you see? Encouraged, Eleanor pointed out 2 more inconsistencies and suggested a reorganization of the key points to create a stronger narrative flow. As she spoke, she could see Gabriel's initial politeness transforming into genuine consideration. Do you have your resume with you? He asked when she finished. Eleanor opened her portfolio and handed him her carefully crafted resume, the one she'd spent hours perfecting for a job that was now irrelevant. Gabriel scanned it quickly, his eyes lingering on her employment gap. You mentioned caring for your mother, he said softly. I lost my father to cancer when I was in college. It changes you. The unexpected personal disclosure created a moment of connection between them. It does, Eleanor agreed. It taught me what actually matters. Gabriel set down her resume. Here's my proposal, Eleanor. I need someone immediately. Come work for me for 2 weeks. Here at the conference and then at our headquarters in San Francisco. Consider it a trial period for both of us. If it works out, we'll discuss a permanent position. If not, I'll pay you for your time and provide a recommendation. Eleanor's mind raced. 2 weeks with one of the most influential tech entrepreneurs in the country. It was both terrifying and potentially life-changing. When would you need me to start? Now, Gabriel said simply. The conference begins tomorrow, and I have meetings all afternoon today. Now? Eleanor repeated, stunned. But I don't have anything with me. No clothes for a 2-week trip. No toiletries. Gabriel waved his hand dismissively. Those are solvable problems. The hotel has excellent shops, and I'll provide an advance for any necessary expenses. He leaned forward, his gaze intense. The question is, are you willing to take a leap of faith, Eleanor? Because I am. The offer was surreal. 12 hours ago, she'd been lying awake in her apartment, worrying about making rent. Now, she was being offered an opportunity that could change everything. It seemed too good to be true, which made her cautious. Why me? She asked. You don't know anything about me. Gabriel smiled. I know you're observant enough to catch errors my team missed. I know you're honest about your circumstances rather than trying to present a perfect facade. And I know you've faced significant challenges without letting them defeat you. He shrugged. Sometimes the best decisions are made on instinct, and my instinct says, you're exactly what I need right now. Eleanor took a deep breath. What did she have to lose? All right, Mr. Whitaker, I accept your offer. Gabriel, please, he corrected. If you're going to be managing my life for the next 2 weeks, we should be on a first-name basis. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind. Gabriel introduced Eleanor to his team. 3 intensely focused individuals who barely looked up from their devices to acknowledge her. He gave her access to his calendar, contacts, and the project management systems they used. The learning curve was steep, but Eleanor absorbed everything quickly, asking clarifying questions and taking detailed notes. By late afternoon, she'd helped reorganize his presentation, scheduled 4 meetings with potential investors, and coordinated with the conference organizers about Gabriel's keynote speech. When he stepped out for a business call, one of his team members, a serious young woman named Vivian, approached Eleanor. He seems impressed with you, Vivian said, her tone suggesting this was unusual. I'm just trying to keep up, Eleanor replied honestly. Vivian's expression softened slightly. Word of advice. Gabriel works around the clock and expects everyone else to do the same. The last assistant quit because she couldn't handle the pace. She glanced toward the door to ensure Gabriel wasn't returning yet. He's brilliant but demanding. Just so you know what you're getting into. Before Eleanor could respond, Gabriel returned. Eleanor, we need to discuss tomorrow's schedule, he said, already moving toward his laptop. There was no acknowledgement of her personal needs, the fact that she needed clothes, toiletries, or even her own room at the hotel. As if reading her thoughts, Gabriel looked up. Vivian, please arrange a room for Eleanor and have the concierge assist her with any purchases she needs to make. Add it to the company account. He turned to Eleanor. Take an hour to get settled. Meet me back here at 6 for dinner. We'll review the investor pitches then. Eleanor nodded, grateful for the brief reprieve. As Vivian led her to the front desk to arrange her room, the reality of her situation began to sink in. She'd just accepted a job with a demanding billionaire, based solely on a chance encounter. Was this an incredible opportunity or a massive mistake? Her room was on the 5th floor, smaller than Gabriel's suite, but still luxurious by any standard. A message was already waiting for her from the concierge, offering assistance with shopping. Eleanor quickly made a list of essentials and arranged to meet the concierge in the lobby. 2 hours later, she returned to her room with several bags containing professional clothing, toiletries, and necessities for a 2-week stay. The prices had made her wince, even knowing Gabriel had approved the expenses. It felt strange to spend more on a single outfit than she usually budgeted for a month of groceries. After a quick shower, Eleanor dressed in one of her new outfits, a charcoal gray suit with a silk blouse, and headed back to Gabriel's suite, arriving precisely at 6. When she knocked, Gabriel opened the door immediately, as if he'd been waiting. Perfect timing, he said approvingly. Come in. Food has been delivered. Dinner wasn't the relaxed affair Eleanor had envisioned. Instead, Gabriel had transformed the conference table into a working dinner setup, with tablets displaying presentations and documents spread between their plates. As they ate, Eleanor barely tasting the expensive meal, Gabriel outlined his expectations in detail. I need someone who can anticipate problems before they become problems, he explained. Someone who isn't afraid to speak up when they see issues, even if it contradicts what I'm saying. Eleanor nodded, trying to absorb everything. May I ask a personal question? Gabriel looked surprised, but nodded. Why are you really giving me this chance? There must be hundreds of qualified assistants who would jump at this opportunity. Gabriel set down his fork, considering her question. I've found that the most extraordinary people are often those who haven't had the easiest path. Adversity builds something in people that can't be taught. He picked up his water glass. You knocked on my door by mistake, Eleanor. But the way you handled that mistake told me more about your character than any resume could. Eleanor felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. For the first time in years, someone was seeing her potential rather than her circumstances. Besides, Gabriel added with a hint of a smile, sometimes the universe puts exactly the right person in your path at exactly the right moment. My grandmother would have called it fate. And what do you call it? Eleanor asked. A fortunate coincidence I'm smart enough not to ignore, Gabriel replied. Now, let's review tomorrow's schedule. My keynote is at 9, followed by back-to-back meetings until 4. The product demonstration is at 5, and we have the investor dinner at 7. As they worked through the details, Eleanor began to understand what Vivian had meant. Gabriel's mind worked at an extraordinary pace, jumping between topics and expecting her to keep up. He was demanding but not unreasonable, exacting but not unkind. When she offered suggestions, he listened and often incorporated her ideas. By the time they finished at nearly midnight, Eleanor's head was spinning with information, but she felt strangely exhilarated. For the first time in years, she was being challenged to her full capacity. Get some rest, Gabriel said as she gathered her notes. Tomorrow will be intense. Eleanor nodded, exhaustion suddenly washing over her. Good night, Gabriel. Thank you for this opportunity. He looked up from his laptop, his expression softening slightly. Thank you for knocking on the wrong door, Eleanor. As she made her way back to her room, Eleanor's mind replayed the events of the day. That morning, she'd been desperate, clinging to the hope of a mediocre job at a mediocre company. Now, she was the assistant to one of the most innovative entrepreneurs in the country. It was surreal. In her room, Eleanor set her alarm for 5:30 a.m., knowing she needed to be prepared before Gabriel started his day. As she drifted off to sleep, she couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring. She'd taken a leap of faith, stepping into the unknown. Only time would tell if she'd sink or soar. What she didn't know was that this chance encounter wasn't just the beginning of a job. It was the beginning of a journey that would transform both their lives in ways neither could imagine. Because sometimes, the wrong door is exactly the right one. Eleanor's alarm jolted her awake at 5:30 a.m. For a moment, she was disoriented by the luxurious hotel room, a stark contrast to her modest apartment. Then the events of yesterday flooded back. She hadn't dreamed it. She was now working for Gabriel Whitaker, one of the most influential tech entrepreneurs in the country. She showered quickly and dressed in one of her new outfits, a tailored black dress with a structured blazer. Professional, polished, yet comfortable enough for what would undoubtedly be a long day. After reviewing her notes from the previous night, she headed to the hotel's coffee shop to pick up Gabriel's preferred drink, a double espresso, no sugar, which he had mentioned in passing. By 6:45 a.m., she was knocking on his suite door. Gabriel opened it immediately, already dressed in a crisp suit, looking as though he'd been awake for hours. Maybe he had been. Good morning, Eleanor said, offering him the espresso. I've reviewed today's schedule and made some adjustments based on our conversation last night. Gabriel accepted the coffee with a look of surprise. Thank you, he said, taking a sip. What adjustments? Eleanor followed him into the suite, which was now transformed into a command center with multiple laptops open and documents organized in neat stacks. I noticed your meeting with Horizon Ventures was scheduled right after your keynote. I pushed it back 30 minutes to give you time for press interactions after your speech. Also, I've prepared briefing notes for each of your meetings today, highlighting key points and background information on each person you're meeting. Gabriel reviewed the revised schedule on his tablet. This is thorough, he said, a note of approval in his voice. You did all this morning? Some last night, some this morning, Eleanor admitted. I wanted to be prepared. Gabriel nodded, clearly pleased. "Let's get to work then." The next few hours were a whirlwind of preparation. Eleanor helped Gabriel fine-tune his keynote presentation, offering suggestions on how to make complex technological concepts more accessible to a general audience. When the rest of his team arrived, she coordinated their efforts, ensuring everyone was aligned on the day's objectives. At 8:30 a.m., they made their way to the conference hall. The space was already filling with industry leaders, journalists, and tech enthusiasts. Eleanor stayed close to Gabriel, managing last-minute requests and keeping track of people he needed to speak with after his presentation. "Nervous?" she asked, noticing a slight tension in his shoulders as they waited backstage. Gabriel glanced at her, surprised by the personal question. "I've given hundreds of speeches." "That's not what I asked," Eleanor said with a small smile. The corner of Gabriel's mouth twitched upward. "Maybe a little. This keynote introduces our most ambitious project yet. There's a lot riding on it." "You'll be brilliant," Eleanor said simply. "Your passion for this technology is evident in every word of your speech." Gabriel studied her for a moment. "Thank you, Eleanor." When Gabriel took the stage, Eleanor watched from the wings, feeling an unexpected surge of pride. His presentation was masterful, articulating a vision of technology that served humanity rather than replacing it. The audience was captivated, and when he finished, the applause was thunderous. What followed was a marathon of meetings, interviews, and networking. Eleanor stayed one step ahead, briefing Gabriel before each interaction, taking notes during meetings, and following up on action items immediately. She noticed that Gabriel rarely praised or thanked her directly, but his increasing reliance on her input spoke volumes. By mid-afternoon, Eleanor's feet were aching in her new shoes, and she hadn't had a moment to eat. Still, adrenaline kept her going. During a rare break between meetings, she stepped out to the hotel lobby to make a quick phone call to cancel her scheduled interview with Horizon Enterprises. As she finished the call, she noticed a familiar face approaching Richard Mercer, CEO of Apex Technologies, one of Whittaker Innovation's main competitors. She recognized him from the research she'd done the night before on Gabriel's industry rivals. "Excuse me," Mercer said, stopping in front of her. "You're with Gabriel Whittaker, aren't you? I saw you with him earlier." Eleanor nodded, maintaining a professional smile. "I'm his executive assistant. Is there something I can help you with?" Mercer's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I was hoping to speak with Gabriel about a potential collaboration. We've been developing technology in a similar space." Eleanor knew from her research that Apex had been trying to acquire information about Whittaker Innovation's latest project, the very one Gabriel had introduced in his keynote. Her instincts told her this was not a genuine collaboration offer. "Mr. Whittaker's schedule is fully booked today," she said politely, but firmly. "But I'd be happy to arrange a proper meeting in the future if you'd like to discuss specific collaboration opportunities." Mercer's expression hardened slightly. "I see. Well, perhaps another time." He reached into his pocket and handed her a business card. "If you ever decide you'd prefer working for a company with a more collaborative approach, give me a call. I could use someone with your attention to detail." The implication was clear. He was attempting to recruit her, or worse, trying to gain information through her. Eleanor took the card with a neutral expression. "Thank you for the offer, Mr. Mercer. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to prepare for Mr. Whittaker's next meeting." As she walked away, she felt Mercer's eyes on her back. She made a mental note to tell Gabriel about the interaction. The afternoon continued at a relentless pace. By 5 o'clock, it was time for the product demonstration, a showcase of Whittaker Innovation's new adaptive AI system designed to revolutionize healthcare diagnostics. Eleanor had studied the materials extensively and understood that this was potentially game-changing technology. The demonstration room was packed with investors, industry experts, and media. Gabriel was in his element, explaining how their system could analyze medical imaging with unprecedented accuracy, while continuously learning and improving. Eleanor watched from the back of the room, ready to step in if needed. Just as Gabriel was moving to the interactive portion of the demonstration, Eleanor noticed a technical glitch on one of the screens. Before anyone else could react, she slipped behind the scenes to the technical team. "There's a display error on the east screen," she whispered urgently to the lead technician. "Can you fix it before Gabriel calls attention to that section?" The technician looked panicked. The backup system isn't responding. We need at least 5 minutes to reboot. Eleanor made a split-second decision. She grabbed a tablet from the tech table and quickly found the relevant demonstration files. Tell Gabriel through his earpiece that there's a minor technical issue and to extend his explanation of the diagnostic algorithms for 5 more minutes. The technician relayed the message, and Eleanor watched as Gabriel smoothly extended his discussion, keeping the audience engaged while giving no indication of the problem unfolding behind the scenes. When the technician signaled that the system was back online, Gabriel transitioned seamlessly to the interactive demonstration, which proceeded flawlessly. After the event, as the audience filed out, Gabriel approached Eleanor. "Quick thinking with the display issue," he said quietly. "How did you know what to do?" "I reviewed the technical setup this morning," Eleanor explained. "I like to understand all aspects of a project, just in case." Gabriel studied her with a new appreciation. Most people would have panicked or let the glitch disrupt the entire demonstration. Eleanor shrugged slightly. "I'm not most people." "No," Gabriel agreed, "you're certainly not." The investor dinner that evening was held in a private dining room at the hotel's acclaimed restaurant. Eleanor had worked with the event coordinator to ensure everything was perfect, from the seating arrangement to the menu selections that accommodated various dietary restrictions. As the guests arrived, Eleanor greeted them and directed them to their seats, having memorized names and faces from her research. Gabriel watched her work with quiet approval. "You should join us for dinner," he said during a lull in arrivals. Eleanor looked surprised. "I was planning to stay in the background, in case you needed anything." "You've earned a seat at the table," Gabriel said simply. "Besides, I want the investors to see the caliber of people who work with me." Throughout dinner, Eleanor observed Gabriel in his element, charming, intelligent, and persuasive without being aggressive. The investors were clearly impressed with both the technology and the man behind it. Several times, Gabriel directed questions to Eleanor, including her in the conversation and showcasing her understanding of the business. By the time dessert was served, it was clear the dinner was a success. One of the investors, Sarah Chen of Luminary Ventures, leaned toward Eleanor, while Gabriel was engaged in conversation with others. "Gabriel seems different," Sarah commented quietly. "More grounded. How long have you been working with him?" "Just since yesterday, actually," Eleanor admitted. Sarah's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Really? You seem like you've been part of his team for years." "We just click, I suppose," Eleanor said, unsure how else to explain the natural rhythm they'd already established. Sarah smiled knowingly. "That's rare. In my experience, the right partnership can transform both people involved." Eleanor pondered those words as the evening continued. Was this just a job, or was it becoming something more, a partnership, as Sarah had suggested? As the dinner wound down, Eleanor noticed Gabriel looking increasingly fatigued, though he hid it well from the investors. She discreetly arranged for the check to be prepared and began orchestrating graceful goodbyes. Once the last investor had departed, Gabriel loosened his tie with a sigh. "That went even better than expected. Chen and Blackwood are both ready to increase their investments." "You were very persuasive," Eleanor said. "Your passion for how this technology can improve healthcare outcomes is compelling." Gabriel nodded absently, his exhaustion now evident. Eleanor realized he'd probably been running on adrenaline all day, just as she had been. "You should rest," she suggested gently. "Tomorrow starts early with the panel discussion. There's still work to be done tonight," Gabriel said, already reaching for his phone. "The development team in San Francisco needs feedback on the latest algorithm adjustments." Eleanor made a decision. "The development team is 3 hours behind us. Why don't you take an hour to rest, and then we can review the updates together before sending feedback. You'll be sharper with even a short break." Gabriel looked as though he was about to argue, then seemed to reconsider. "Maybe you're right," he conceded. 1 hour. They walked back to their rooms in comfortable silence. When they reached Eleanor's door, Gabriel paused. "Today was exceptional, Eleanor. Few people could have handled everything you managed on their first day." Coming from him, it felt like the highest praise. "Thank you for trusting me," she replied simply. "Get some rest," Gabriel said. "I'll see you in an hour." Eleanor entered her room and kicked off her shoes with a grateful sigh. Her feet were blistered, her back ached, and her mind was buzzing with 1,000 details. Yet she felt more alive than she had in years. Today, she had been tested and had risen to every challenge. She ordered room service, her first real meal of the day, and took 15 minutes to eat while reviewing her notes from the day. Then she opened her laptop to check on the algorithm updates Gabriel had mentioned. She wanted to understand them before their meeting. The technical documentation was dense, but Eleanor had always been a quick study. By the time she knocked on Gabriel's door an hour later, she had a solid grasp of the key issues and had prepared a summary to make their review more efficient. Gabriel answered, looking marginally more rested. He'd changed into more casual clothes, expensive jeans, and a simple button-down shirt that somehow made him seem more approachable. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "I was just reviewing the San Francisco team's notes." "I took the liberty of preparing a summary," Eleanor said, handing him her tablet. "I've highlighted the 3 key decision points they need input on, and included relevant background information." Gabriel scrolled through her summary, his expression shifting from surprise to approval. "This would have taken me at least 30 minutes to compile," he said. "How did you understand the technical aspects so quickly?" Eleanor shrugged slightly. "I've always been good at absorbing new information. And there was a logic to it once I understood the basic framework." They spent the next hour discussing the algorithm adjustments, with Eleanor asking insightful questions that sometimes made Gabriel pause to reconsider his assumptions. By the time they finished and sent their feedback to the San Francisco team, it was past midnight. "We make a good team," Gabriel observed, as Eleanor gathered her things to leave. "You challenge my thinking in ways few people do." The simple acknowledgement warmed Eleanor more than any elaborate praise could have. "That's my job," she said lightly. Gabriel shook his head. "No, your job was to organize my schedule and handle logistics. He gestured between them. "This partnership of minds is something else entirely." Eleanor wasn't sure how to respond to that. "Well, whatever it is, I'm grateful for the opportunity." "As am I," Gabriel said quietly. "Good night, Eleanor." Back in her room, exhaustion finally overtook Eleanor. As she drifted off to sleep, Sarah Chin's words echoed in her mind. The right partnership can transform both people involved. She wondered how this unexpected opportunity might transform her, and perhaps, in some small way, transform Gabriel too. The next 3 days of the conference followed a similar pattern: early mornings, packed schedules, and late nights reviewing work with Gabriel. Eleanor quickly became indispensable, not just handling logistics but increasingly contributing to strategic discussions. Gabriel began introducing her not simply as his assistant, but as his right hand. On the final day of the conference, Eleanor was managing the breakdown of Whitaker Innovations' exhibition booth when she again encountered Richard Mercer from Apex Technologies. "Ms. Mitchell," he said smoothly, approaching as she directed the event staff, "I've been watching you work. You're wasted as an assistant, you know." Eleanor maintained her professional demeanor. "I'm exactly where I want to be, Mr. Mercer." "For now, perhaps," he conceded. "But Gabriel Whitaker has a reputation for burning through staff. He demands perfection and discards people when they inevitably fall short." Eleanor felt a flare of protectiveness toward Gabriel. "I believe in judging people based on my own experiences with them, not rumors." Mercer smiled thinly. "Loyal already. Impressive." He lowered his voice. "But if you're as smart as you seem, you should know that Whitaker's new healthcare AI has a fundamental flaw. Their approach to machine learning creates inherent biases in diagnostic outcomes. It's only a matter of time before this becomes public knowledge." Eleanor kept her expression neutral, but her mind was racing. Was Mercer telling the truth, or was this a tactic to create doubt? "Thank you for your concern," she said coolly. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to finish." As Mercer walked away, Eleanor made another mental note to discuss this with Gabriel. She hadn't seen any indication of the flaw Mercer mentioned in the materials she'd reviewed, but she wasn't a technical expert. Later that evening, after the closing reception, Eleanor and Gabriel sat in his suite, reviewing the conference outcomes and preparing for their return to San Francisco the next day. "We've secured commitments for an additional $20 million in funding," Eleanor reported, reviewing her notes. And the press coverage has been overwhelmingly positive, particularly about the healthcare applications. Gabriel nodded, satisfied. It couldn't have gone better. He poured 2 glasses of champagne from a bottle that had been sent by one of the investors and handed one to Eleanor. To a successful week. Eleanor accepted the glass. I should mention, I had another encounter with Richard Mercer today. Gabriel's expression darkened. What did he want? Eleanor recounted the conversation, including Mercer's claim about the AI's fundamental flaw. Is there any truth to it? She asked directly. Gabriel was quiet for a moment, swirling the champagne in his glass. There is a challenge with potential bias in the diagnostic algorithms, he finally admitted. But it's not a flaw so much as a hurdle we're still working to overcome. Every AI system struggles with this to some degree. Why wouldn't you have mentioned this during the investor presentations? Eleanor asked carefully. Because it's a technical challenge we're actively addressing, not a fatal flaw, Gabriel said, a defensive edge creeping into his voice. The benefits of the system far outweigh this limitation, which will be resolved before full deployment. Eleanor considered this. Wouldn't it be better to be transparent about the challenges? It would demonstrate integrity and give investors a more complete picture. Gabriel's expression hardened slightly. Business doesn't reward vulnerability, Eleanor. Investors want certainty, not works in progress. But if Mercer knows about this issue, others might too, Eleanor pressed. Wouldn't it be better to control the narrative? Gabriel studied her for a long moment. You're questioning my judgment. I'm offering a perspective, Eleanor corrected gently. Isn't that part of my job? The tension between them stretched until Gabriel unexpectedly laughed, the sound breaking the silence. Yes, he admitted, it is. And you may be right. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. The truth is, I've been so focused on making this technology perfect that I sometimes forget transparency can be a strength, not just a vulnerability. Eleanor felt a weight lift from her shoulders. So what will you do? We'll draft a statement, Gabriel decided, acknowledging the bias challenge and outlining our approach to addressing it. We'll release it when we return to San Francisco. He raised his glass again. To honest counsel, it's rarer than you might think. They clinked glasses, and Eleanor felt something shift between them, a deepening of trust, a strengthening of their professional bond. As they continued working into the night, finalizing plans for their return to San Francisco and Whitaker Innovations headquarters, Eleanor realized with surprise that she wasn't just doing a job anymore. She was investing in something she believed in, both the technology and the man behind it. What had begun as a desperate mistake, knocking on the wrong door, had somehow led her to exactly where she needed to be. As the night deepened and they worked side by side, Eleanor felt a certainty growing within her. This unexpected journey was just beginning, and its destination remained to be seen. The private jet touched down at San Francisco International Airport just as the morning fog was beginning to lift. Eleanor gazed out the window, still not quite believing that this was now her life. A week ago, she'd been struggling to make rent in a cramped apartment. Now she was flying on a private jet with one of the most influential tech leaders in the world. First time on a private plane? Gabriel asked, noticing her expression. Eleanor nodded. It's surreal. All of this is surreal. Gabriel smiled slightly. You'll get used to it. Would she, though? Eleanor wasn't so sure. There was a part of her that didn't want to get used to it, that wanted to maintain her sense of wonder and gratitude for this unexpected turn of events. As they disembarked, a sleek black car was waiting on the tarmac. The driver, a professional-looking woman in a dark suit, greeted Gabriel with familiar respect. Welcome back, Mr. Whitaker. Everything is prepared at headquarters as requested. Thank you, Diane, Gabriel replied. This is Eleanor Mitchell. She'll be working closely with me. Eleanor, Diane has been driving for me for years. She knows this city better than GPS. Diane smiled warmly at Eleanor. Pleasure to meet you, Ms. Mitchell. Any special stops on the way to headquarters? Eleanor shook her head. No, thank you. And please, call me Eleanor. As they settled into the car, Eleanor noticed Gabriel's demeanor shifting. He seemed more focused, almost tense. As they approached the city, This was his domain, where he'd built his empire from nothing. "Nervous about returning to headquarters?" she asked softly. Gabriel glanced at her, surprised by her perception. "Not nervous. Just shifting gears. Conferences are one thing. The real work happens here." Eleanor understood. She'd seen glimpses of the driven, exacting leader Gabriel was known to be. Now she would experience it fully. Whitaker Innovations' headquarters was a stunning modern building of glass and sustainable materials in the heart of San Francisco's tech district. As they approached, Eleanor took in the clean lines and the large WI logo that adorned the entrance. Inside, the atmosphere was immediately different from the conference. More intense, more focused. Staff members moved with purpose, and there was a palpable energy in the air. As Gabriel walked through the lobby, people straightened up, their expressions shifting to alert attention. "Gabriel!" A tall woman with silver-streaked black hair approached them. "Welcome back. The team is eager for your input on the latest iteration." "Thanks, Camilla," Gabriel replied. "This is Eleanor Mitchell. She'll be taking over for Jason." "Eleanor, this is Camilla Reyes, our Chief Technology Officer." Camilla gave Eleanor an appraising look. "I've heard good things from the conference team. You made quite an impression." Eleanor shook her hand firmly. "It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm looking forward to learning more about the technical side of things." Camilla raised an eyebrow. "Most assistants don't concern themselves with the technical details." "I'm not most assistants," Eleanor replied with a confident smile. Camilla's expression warmed slightly. "I can see that. Well, welcome aboard." As they rode the elevator to the executive floor, Gabriel turned to Eleanor. "Camilla doesn't impress easily. Take that as a compliment." The executive floor was a hive of activity. Gabriel's corner office offered breathtaking views of the city, but Eleanor barely had time to appreciate them as she was quickly introduced to key team members and shown to her adjoining office, a space that was surprisingly large and well-appointed for an assistant. "This was Jason's space," Gabriel explained. "Make it your own. I've arranged temporary housing for you at a corporate apartment until you find something permanent. Your personal items from the hotel are being delivered there." Eleanor felt a rush of gratitude at his thoughtfulness. "Thank you. That's very kind." Gabriel waved away her thanks. "It's practical. I need you focused on work, not logistics." His phone buzzed, and he glanced at it. "Executive meeting in 30 minutes. Let's get you up to speed on the players before then." The next hour was a crash course in Whitaker Innovations' leadership structure, current projects, and company politics. Eleanor absorbed it all, asking clarifying questions and making mental notes about each person Gabriel described. The executive meeting was held in a sleek conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. Eleanor sat slightly behind Gabriel, tablet ready to take notes. As the leadership team filed in, she studied each person, matching them to Gabriel's descriptions and looking for the dynamics he'd mentioned. Camilla Reyes, the CTO, was clearly respected by all. Marcus Chin, the chief financial officer, was more reserved but spoke with quiet authority about financial projections. Zoe Washington, head of marketing, was dynamic and creative, constantly looking for new angles to promote their technology. As the meeting progressed, Eleanor observed how Gabriel led direct but not dictatorial, challenging ideas without dismissing the people behind them. He expected excellence but seemed to genuinely value input from his team. When the discussion turned to the bias issue in the healthcare AI that Mercer had mentioned, Gabriel surprised everyone by addressing it head-on. "We need to be proactive about this," he said. Eleanor suggested we draft a statement acknowledging the challenge and outlining our approach to addressing it. "I agree." All eyes turned briefly to Eleanor, expressions ranging from surprise to curiosity. She maintained a composed demeanor, but inside, she felt a surge of pride that Gabriel had not only taken her suggestion, but had credited her publicly. Zoe leaned forward. "With respect, is that wise? Admitting a flaw could impact investor confidence." "It's not admitting a flaw," Gabriel countered. "It's demonstrating integrity and transparency, about a complex challenge that every AI system faces. We're leaders in this space. We should lead in how we discuss these issues too. The team debated the approach, with Camilla ultimately supporting Gabriel's position. If we frame it correctly, this could actually strengthen our position as thought leaders. No one else is having these ethical conversations publicly. By the end of the meeting, a plan was in place. Eleanor had been assigned to work with Zoe and Camilla on drafting the statement, a responsibility that went well beyond typical assistant duties. As the executives filed out, Camilla lingered. "Impressive first day," she said to Eleanor. "Not many people influence Gabriel's thinking so quickly. We should grab coffee sometime. I'd like to hear more about your background." Over the next few days, Eleanor threw herself into her new role with the same dedication she'd shown at the conference. She quickly mastered the company's systems, formed relationships with key staff members, and became Gabriel's trusted filter for information and requests. Their working rhythm became even more synchronized. Eleanor anticipated Gabriel's needs before he voiced them, prepared materials that addressed questions before they were asked, and increasingly contributed substantive ideas to discussions. One evening, about a week after their return to San Francisco, Eleanor was working late in her office when Gabriel appeared in her doorway. "You're still here," he observed. Eleanor looked up from her computer. "Just finishing the analysis of the market response to our transparency statement. Early indicators are positive. Our approach is being praised in the tech and healthcare communities." Gabriel nodded, seemingly pleased but not surprised. "Come with me. I want to show you something." Curious, Eleanor followed him to the elevator. Instead of going down to the parking garage, they went up to the roof. The door opened to reveal a beautiful rooftop garden, an oasis of green in the urban landscape, with spectacular views of the city now twinkling with lights in the dusk. "I didn't know this was here," Eleanor said, taking in the peaceful space. "Few people do," Gabriel replied. "It's my thinking space when problems seem insurmountable." He walked to the railing, looking out over the city. "I come here to remind myself of the bigger picture." Eleanor joined him, appreciating the moment of calm after days of intense work. "It's beautiful." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Gabriel spoke again. "You've exceeded every expectation I had when you knocked on my hotel room door, Eleanor." "Thank you," she said simply. "I'm grateful for the opportunity." Gabriel turned to face her. "Your 2-week trial period ends tomorrow. I'd like to offer you the permanent position. Same arrangement as we discussed, full benefits, competitive salary, stock options." Though she'd been hoping for this outcome, hearing it made Eleanor's heart skip. "I accept," she said without hesitation. "I believe in what you're building here." Gabriel smiled, a genuine smile that transformed his usually serious expression. "It's not just what I'm building anymore. You're part of this now." The moment felt significant, a true partnership forming between them. As they stood together looking out over the city, Eleanor felt a deep sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years. The following weeks flew by in a blur of activity. The healthcare AI project moved into its final development phase, with Eleanor increasingly involved in both strategic planning and public messaging. Her background in marketing proved valuable as they prepared for the official launch. One afternoon, Gabriel called Eleanor into his office. "I need you to attend a meeting with Mercy Hospital's board next week," he said without preamble. "They're considering being our first major implementation partner, but they have concerns about the bias issues we disclosed." Eleanor blinked in surprise. "You want me to go alone?" "With Camilla," Gabriel clarified. "I have to be in Washington for the congressional hearings on AI regulation. You understand both the technology and our ethical approach well enough to represent us." The vote of confidence was enormous. "I won't let you down," Eleanor promised. The meeting with Mercy Hospital's board was held in their impressive boardroom, overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge. Eleanor and Camilla arrived early to set up their presentation and review their strategy. "Nervous?" Camilla asked as they waited. "A little," Eleanor admitted. "This is a major opportunity for the company," Camilla nodded. "Gabriel doesn't send people to these meetings unless he trusts them completely. You should know that." Before Eleanor could respond, the board members began filing in, serious men and women in formal attire, with the hospital's chief medical officer, Dr. Elaine Harper, leading the group. "Thank you for coming," Dr. Harper began once everyone was seated. "We've reviewed your proposal extensively, and while we're impressed with the potential of your AI diagnostic system, we have serious concerns about the bias issues you've disclosed." Eleanor took a deep breath and leaned forward. "Dr. Harper, board members, thank you for your candor. We appreciate your concerns, and I want to address them directly." She pulled up a slide that showed their latest bias mitigation strategies. "We believe true innovation comes not from hiding challenges, but from confronting them openly and solving them collaboratively." Over the next hour, Eleanor and Camilla walked the board through their approach, answering tough questions with honesty and clarity. When technical details were required, Camilla stepped in with expert explanations. When ethical or implementation concerns arose, Eleanor addressed them with thoughtful, well-reasoned responses. By the end of the presentation, the atmosphere in the room had shifted from skepticism to cautious optimism. "You've given us much to consider," Dr. Harper said. "Your transparency is refreshing, but ultimately, we need to be certain this technology will serve all our patients equally." "We understand," Eleanor replied. "That's why we're proposing a phased implementation with continuous monitoring and regular reporting to your ethics committee. We want to earn your trust through demonstrated results." As they gathered their materials after the meeting, Dr. Harper approached Eleanor privately. "I was expecting Gabriel Whitaker today." "He sends his regrets," Eleanor said. "He's testifying before Congress on AI regulation." Dr. Harper studied her thoughtfully. "He sent you instead." "Interesting." "Is that a problem?" Eleanor asked directly. "Not at all," Dr. Harper replied with a small smile. "Sometimes those closest to the visionaries are better at translating the vision into practical reality. I think Gabriel Whitaker made an excellent choice in you, Ms. Mitchell." The following day, as Eleanor was briefing Gabriel on the meeting via video conference, the news came through. Mercy Hospital had agreed to the partnership, with the phased implementation approach Eleanor had suggested. Gabriel's face broke into a rare, genuine smile. "Congratulations, Eleanor, this is a breakthrough." Eleanor felt a warm glow of accomplishment. It was a team effort. Camilla was brilliant with the technical explanations. "But it was your approach that won them over," Gabriel insisted. "Your idea to frame it as a collaborative journey, rather than a finished product." After the call ended, Eleanor sat back in her chair, processing the magnitude of what had just happened. She had helped secure the first major implementation partner for technology that could genuinely change healthcare outcomes. It was far beyond anything she could have imagined when she'd knocked on the wrong hotel room door that day in Westbrook. As the weeks turned into months, Eleanor's role continued to evolve beyond traditional executive assistant duties. She became Gabriel's strategic partner, representing him in meetings, contributing to product development discussions, and helping shape the company's ethical framework for AI development. Her life outside work began to take shape as well. She found an apartment in a pleasant neighborhood not far from headquarters, nothing extravagant, but comfortable and entirely her own. She made friends among her colleagues, particularly Camilla, who became both a mentor and ally. One evening, about 6 months after joining Whitaker Innovations, Eleanor was working late in her office when Gabriel appeared in her doorway. "You're still here," he said, echoing words from months before. Eleanor looked up with a tired smile. "Just finishing the quarterly report for the board meeting tomorrow." Gabriel nodded, then hesitated. An unusual moment of uncertainty from someone normally so decisive. "There's something I want to discuss with you, not work-related. Would you join me for dinner?" Curious and slightly concerned, Eleanor agreed. They walked to a small, elegant restaurant a few blocks from the office, the kind of place where the staff knew Gabriel by name and led them to a private table in the back. After they ordered, Gabriel seemed uncharacteristically hesitant. "I've been reflecting on the past 6 months," he finally said. "On how much has changed since you knocked on my hotel room door." "It's been quite a journey," Eleanor agreed, wondering where this was leading. Gabriel nodded. "The company has grown stronger. The Mercy Hospital implementation is exceeding expectations. Our approach to the bias issue has become a case study in ethical AI development." He paused. "But the most significant change has been more personal." Eleanor waited, sensing there was more. "Before you joined the company, I was," he searched for the right words, "isolated. focused solely on the technology, on being right, on winning. You've helped me see that true leadership is about more than being the smartest person in the room. It's about bringing out the best in others, about transparency and collaboration. Eleanor was touched by his candor. You were already an exceptional leader, Gabriel. I just offered a different perspective. A perspective I needed, he insisted. Which brings me to what I wanted to discuss. He took a breath. I'm creating a new position, Chief Ethics Officer. Someone who will ensure our technological advancements always serve humanity, not the other way around. Someone who will challenge my thinking when necessary and help shape our company's moral compass. Eleanor nodded, waiting for him to continue. I want you to take the position, Gabriel said simply. Eleanor stared at him in shock. Me? But I don't have the technical background or the executive experience. You have something more valuable, Gabriel countered. Integrity, empathy, the ability to see both the big picture and the human details. You've already been doing much of this work unofficially, helping us navigate the bias disclosure, shaping our approach with Mercy Hospital, contributing to our ethical guidelines. Eleanor's mind raced with the implications. This wasn't just a job offer. It was a complete career transformation. This is unexpected, she managed. Gabriel smiled slightly. Like knocking on the wrong hotel room door? Eleanor couldn't help but laugh. Even more unexpected than that. Take some time to think about it, Gabriel said. This would be a significant change, with more responsibility and visibility. But I believe you're ready. Over the next few days, Eleanor considered the offer carefully. She sought advice from Camilla, who was enthusiastically supportive. You've already been our conscience in many ways, Camilla told her. This just makes it official. She also spoke with Dr. Harper at Mercy Hospital, who offered a perspective from outside the company. The field of AI ethics needs more voices like yours, Dr. Harper said. People who understand both the technical possibilities and the human implications. 1 week after Gabriel's offer, Eleanor knocked on his office door. He looked up from his computer, his expression questioning. I've made my decision, Eleanor said, closing the door behind her. I'll accept the position with one condition. Gabriel raised an eyebrow. Which is? That we establish an ethics advisory board that includes outside voices, medical professionals, patient advocates, data privacy experts. If I'm going to help shape our ethical direction, I want to ensure we're hearing diverse perspectives. Gabriel considered this for a moment, then nodded. A sound proposal. Consider it done. As they shook hands to formalize the agreement, Eleanor couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought her here. 6 months ago, she had been desperate, knocking on what she thought was the wrong door. Now she understood it had been exactly the right door all along. The following month, Whitaker Innovations held a press conference to announce the creation of their ethics division and Eleanor's appointment as Chief Ethics Officer. Standing at the podium beside Gabriel, facing a room full of journalists, Eleanor felt a surreal sense of how dramatically her life had changed. Ms. Mitchell, called out a reporter from the front row, you've risen from executive assistant to C-suite in just 6 months. Some might say that's an unusual trajectory. What qualifies you for this role? Eleanor met the reporter's gaze steadily. What qualifies anyone for pioneering work? Not just credentials, but perspective, principles, and purpose. 6 months ago, I knocked on the wrong hotel room door and met someone who judged me not by my circumstances, but by my capabilities. Today, Whitaker Innovations is doing something similar, recognizing that the ethical challenges of artificial intelligence require fresh perspectives and diverse voices. She paused, looking out at the assembled press. My journey may be unusual, but so is the territory we're navigating. As we develop technologies that will shape humanity's future, we need to ensure they embody our highest values: compassion, fairness, and respect for human dignity. That's the work I'm committed to doing. After the press conference, as they walked back to their offices, Gabriel glanced at Eleanor with quiet approval. That was well said. I meant every word, Eleanor replied, especially about knocking on the wrong door that turned out to be exactly the right one. Gabriel smiled, one of those rare, genuine smiles that transformed his usual intensity into something warmer. Some might call that fate. And what do you call it? Eleanor asked, echoing their conversation from months before. A fortunate mistake that changed everything, Gabriel said, for both of us. As they continued walking, Eleanor reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. From desperation to transformation, from a simple mistake to a profound purpose. Sometimes, life's wrong turns lead to exactly the right destination. 2 years had passed since Eleanor Mitchell knocked on the wrong hotel room door. 2 years since that fateful mistake changed the trajectory of her life forever. Now, as Chief Ethics Officer of Whitaker Innovations, she stood on a stage in Stockholm, Sweden, preparing to accept the Global Innovation for Humanity Award on behalf of the company. The Grand Hall was filled with technology leaders, humanitarian organizations, and media from around the world. Eleanor adjusted the microphone, looking out at the audience with quiet confidence. "Thank you for this tremendous honor," she began. "When we launched our healthcare AI system 2 years ago, many questioned whether technology could truly serve humanity without perpetuating existing biases and inequalities. Today, with implementation in over 200 hospitals worldwide and documented improvements in diagnostic accuracy across all patient demographics, we're proving that ethical technology isn't just possible, it's essential." As Eleanor continued her speech, highlighting the company's commitment to transparent development and inclusive design, she caught Gabriel's eye in the front row. He gave her a subtle nod of approval, and she felt a familiar surge of pride in their shared accomplishment. This journey hadn't been easy. Building ethics into the core of cutting-edge technology had required countless difficult conversations, principled stands, and innovative solutions. But the results spoke for themselves. Whitaker Innovations had become a leader not just in AI technology but in ethical AI development, a model other companies were now scrambling to emulate. After the ceremony at the gala reception, Eleanor found herself surrounded by well-wishers and potential partners eager to learn from their approach. Gabriel appeared at her side, smoothly helping her navigate the social demands. "You gave an excellent speech," he said quietly, during a brief moment alone. "You didn't mention your own story, though." Eleanor smiled. "Tonight wasn't about me. It was about what we've built together." Gabriel studied her for a moment. "Perhaps. But your journey, from knocking on the wrong door to standing on that stage, is remarkable in its own right. People find hope in stories like yours." Before Eleanor could respond, they were approached by Dr. Maja Lindström, a prominent neurologist from Sweden's Karolinska Institute. "Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Whitaker," Dr. Lindström greeted them warmly. "I wanted to personally thank you for your work. We've been using your diagnostic system for 18 months now, and the improvements in our early detection rates for neurological conditions are nothing short of revolutionary." "That's wonderful to hear," Eleanor replied. "We'd love to learn more about your specific outcomes." "One of our core principles is continuous improvement based on real-world implementation data." As they discussed the Institute's experience, Eleanor noticed Gabriel watching her with an expression she'd come to recognize, a mixture of pride and something deeper, more personal. Their professional relationship had evolved into a true partnership of equals, built on mutual respect and shared vision. Later that night, after the festivities had ended, they walked through Stockholm's beautiful old town, Gamla stan. The cobblestone streets were quiet, the medieval buildings bathed in soft golden light. "I've been thinking," Gabriel said as they strolled along the waterfront. "About what's next for us." Eleanor glanced at him curiously. "In what sense?" Gabriel stopped walking, turning to face her. "We've achieved what many said was impossible. Our healthcare AI is succeeding beyond our most optimistic projections. The ethics framework you developed is being adopted as an industry standard. There's still so much more to do," Eleanor pointed out. "The elder care system we're developing, the educational applications." "Yes," Gabriel agreed, "but I'm beginning to wonder if there's an even greater impact we could have." He gestured around them at the ancient city. "Standing in a place with this much history makes you think about legacy, about what truly matters in the long run." Eleanor studied him with interest. In their years of working together, she'd never heard Gabriel speak quite this way. "What are you proposing?" "A foundation," Gabriel said simply. "The Whitaker Foundation for Ethical Innovation, dedicated to ensuring that technological advancement serves humanity's highest potential. Not tied to our company's commercial interests, but focused purely on the greater good." Eleanor's mind immediately began exploring the possibilities. A separate entity that could fund research, education, policy development. "Exactly," Gabriel nodded, warming to the subject. We could establish scholarships for underprivileged students interested in ethical technology. Fund independent research on the societal impacts of AI. Create educational programs for developers on building ethics into their design process from day one. Eleanor could see the vision forming. It could have a global reach, bringing these principles to regions that are just beginning their technological development. Yes, Gabriel said, his eyes alight with purpose. And I want you to lead it. Eleanor blinked in surprise. Me? But what about my role at Whitaker Innovations? The foundation would be your primary focus. Camilla's niece, Sophia, has been excelling in the ethics division under your mentorship. She could step up to lead the division at the company, with you as an advisor. Eleanor's mind raced with the implications. Leading a foundation would be yet another transformation in her already remarkable journey. This is unexpected, she said, echoing her words from 2 years ago when Gabriel had offered her the chief ethics officer position. Gabriel smiled. Like knocking on the wrong hotel room door? Eleanor laughed softly at their running joke. Even more unexpected than that. She looked out over the water, gathering her thoughts. Why me, Gabriel? This foundation would be your legacy. Our legacy, he corrected gently. From that first day, when you pointed out the inconsistencies in my presentation without hesitation, you've shown a courage and clarity of purpose that's rare. The foundation needs someone who will stand firm on principles, even when it's difficult. Someone who sees both the technical possibilities and the human implications. Eleanor was deeply moved by his faith in her. I'd need time to think about it. To develop a proper vision and structure. Of course, Gabriel agreed. Take all the time you need. The foundation isn't official yet, just an idea I've been considering for some time. As they continued their walk through the quiet streets, Eleanor felt that familiar sensation of standing at a threshold of transformation. Just when she thought her journey had reached its destination, new horizons appeared. The next morning, as their plane soared above the clouds on the return journey to San Francisco, Eleanor opened her laptop and began outlining her thoughts for the foundation. If she was going to consider this role, she wanted to approach it with the same thoroughness she brought to all her work. Gabriel, seated across from her, noticed her focused expression. Already planning? He asked with a knowing smile. Just exploring possibilities, Eleanor replied. If we're going to do this, it needs to be more than just another tech foundation with good intentions. It needs to be transformative. By the time they landed in San Francisco, Eleanor had drafted a preliminary vision document. Over the following weeks, as she balanced her ongoing responsibilities at Whitaker Innovations, she continued refining the concept, consulting with experts in philanthropy, education, and international development. One evening, about a month after their return from Stockholm, Eleanor scheduled a meeting with Gabriel to discuss her thoughts. They met in the rooftop garden, the peaceful space that had become their preferred location for important conversations. I've been thinking about your foundation proposal, Eleanor began, handing him a tablet with her presentation. And I believe it has the potential to be truly transformative, but only if we're willing to be bold. Gabriel raised an eyebrow as he reviewed her proposal. A global network of innovation centers in underserved communities, apprenticeship programs for students without traditional educational backgrounds. This is ambitious. Yes, Eleanor agreed unapologetically, because the problems we're trying to address are immense. The technological revolution is widening inequality in many regions. Those without access to education and resources are being left further behind. If we want technology to truly serve all of humanity, we need to democratize access to its creation. Gabriel continued reading, his expression thoughtful. You're proposing we commit a significant portion of my personal wealth, not just company resources. The foundation needs to be independent of the company's commercial interests, Eleanor explained. And to have the impact we envision, it needs substantial funding. She paused, watching him carefully. Is that a problem? Gabriel looked up, meeting her gaze. No. Actually, I'm impressed by your vision. It's bigger than what I imagined, but it feels right. He scrolled through more of the document. You've included a section about your personal story as part of the foundation's narrative. Eleanor nodded. After our conversation in Stockholm, I've been reflecting on what you said about my journey giving people hope. If my story of knocking on the wrong door can inspire others to see their own setbacks as potential turning points, then it belongs in the Foundation's story. Gabriel studied her for a long moment. You've come so far from that day in the hotel hallway. We both have, Eleanor replied softly. You took a chance on someone who made a simple mistake, and it changed both our lives. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken understanding of the unique bond they'd formed. Professional partners who had become something more. True friends who believed in each other's highest potential. So, Gabriel finally said, when do we announce the Whitaker Foundation for Ethical Innovation? Eleanor smiled. I think there's one more piece to put in place first. I'd like to visit some of the communities where we're planning to establish innovation centers. To listen and learn before we launch. Gabriel nodded approvingly. A wise approach. Where would you start? I was thinking of returning to my hometown, Eleanor said. A once thriving manufacturing community that struggled with economic transition. It represents exactly the kind of place that's being left behind in the technological revolution. 2 weeks later, Eleanor found herself walking the familiar streets of Millfield, the small Midwestern town where she'd grown up. The main street looked much as it had when she'd left 10 years ago, perhaps with a few more empty storefronts, a little more wear on the buildings. She'd arranged to meet with community leaders at the local library to discuss the possibility of establishing an innovation center in Millfield. As she waited for them to arrive, she wandered through the library, remembering how this place had been her sanctuary as a child, the place where she'd discovered worlds beyond her small town. Eleanor Mitchell? Is that really you? Eleanor turned to see Mrs. Abernathy, her former high school English teacher, now with more gray in her hair, but the same bright, intelligent eyes. Mrs. Abernathy, Eleanor smiled warmly, embracing the older woman. It's wonderful to see you. When I heard you were coming back to discuss some big foundation project, I could hardly believe it, Mrs. Abernathy said, studying her former student with pride. Though I always knew you were destined for great things. Eleanor felt a rush of gratitude for this teacher, who had believed in her potential long before she'd recognized it herself. I wouldn't be where I am without educators like you, Mrs. Abernathy. In fact, that's partly why I'm here. As the community leaders arrived, the mayor, the high school principal, the head of the local community college, and several business owners, Eleanor explained the vision for the Whitaker Foundation and the innovation centers they plan to establish. We're not just looking to build a facility, she emphasized. We want to create opportunities that are integrated with the community. Programs that build on local strengths and address local needs. The mayor, a practical woman in her 50s, looked skeptical. It sounds impressive, Eleanor, but why Millfield? We're hardly a technology hub. That's exactly why, Eleanor replied passionately. The technological revolution shouldn't be limited to coastal cities and elite universities. There's talent and potential everywhere. It just needs opportunity and resources to flourish. She shared her own story, growing up in Millfield, struggling after college, and the life-changing moment when she knocked on the wrong hotel room door. Sometimes the most powerful innovations come from unexpected places and unexpected people, she concluded. I believe Millfield could be one of those unexpected places. By the end of the meeting, the community leaders were cautiously optimistic, agreeing to form a working group to explore the possibility further. As Eleanor prepared to leave, Mrs. Abernathy approached her again. You've inspired them, the teacher said quietly. More importantly, you've reminded them that Millfield isn't just a place that things happen to. It can be a place where things begin. Eleanor squeezed her former teacher's hand. That's exactly what I hope to prove. Back in San Francisco, Eleanor threw herself into finalizing the foundation plans. She worked closely with Gabriel and a small team of advisors, refining the vision, establishing the legal structure, and developing the initial programs. The day before the official announcement, Gabriel called Eleanor into his office. There's one detail we haven't discussed, he said. The name. Eleanor looked confused. The Whitaker Foundation for Ethical Innovation. We agreed on that months ago. Gabriel shook his head. I've been thinking. This foundation represents a partnership of vision, yours and mine. The name should reflect that. He pushed a document across his desk. What do you think of this? Eleanor looked down at the paper and felt her breath catch. The header read, the Whitaker Mitchell Foundation for Ethical Innovation. "Gabriel," she said softly, "you don't have to do this." "I want to," he said simply. "Your vision has shaped this foundation as much as mine. Your name deserves to be on it." Eleanor was deeply moved by the gesture. From a woman desperate for a job to having her name on a major global foundation, the journey seemed almost unbelievable. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm honored." The foundation's launch event was held at a community college in Millfield, a deliberate choice that embodied its mission to bring innovation to unexpected places. The auditorium was packed with local residents, media, technology leaders, and philanthropy experts. As Eleanor took the stage alongside Gabriel, she saw Mrs. Abernathy in the front row, beaming with pride. She also noticed several young people watching with intense interest, perhaps seeing in her story a possibility for their own futures. 2 years ago, Eleanor began, I knocked on what I thought was the wrong door. That simple mistake led to a journey I could never have imagined. She gestured to Gabriel beside her. I found not just a job, but a partnership that would transform both our lives and, we hope, many others. She outlined the Foundation's mission to ensure that technological advancement serves humanity's highest potential by democratizing access to innovation. She explained the plans for global innovation centers, scholarship programs, and ethical technology education. We believe that genius and potential exist everywhere, she said passionately. In small towns like Millfield, in urban neighborhoods, in rural communities, in regions around the world that have been overlooked by the technological revolution. Our mission is to open doors, the right doors, for people who just need an opportunity to shine. After the presentation, as Eleanor mingled with the attendees, a teenage girl approached her hesitantly. Ms. Mitchell? My name is Zoe Williams. I'm a junior at Millfield High. It's nice to meet you, Zoe, Eleanor smiled warmly. I wanted to ask. The girl began nervously. I'm really interested in AI ethics, but I didn't think someone from Millfield could ever work in that field. Do you really think people from here can do what you do? Eleanor looked into the girl's earnest face and saw something of herself at that age. Curious, bright, but uncertain of her place in the world. Zoe, I absolutely believe that, she said with conviction. In fact, we need perspectives from places like Millfield in the field of AI ethics. Technology shouldn't be shaped only by people from certain backgrounds or locations. It needs diverse voices to ensure it serves everyone. She took out a business card and wrote her personal email on the back. If you're serious about exploring this field, email me. We're developing mentorship programs as part of the foundation, and I'd be happy to connect you with resources. The girl's face lit up with possibility. Really? Thank you so much. As Zoe walked away, clutching the card like a treasure, Gabriel appeared at Eleanor's side. Making a personal connection already? He asked with a knowing smile. She reminds me of myself, Eleanor admitted. Except she'll have opportunities I never had at her age. Gabriel nodded, his expression thoughtful. That's how change happens. One person opens a door, and suddenly new possibilities exist for countless others. Later that evening, after the event had concluded, Eleanor and Gabriel took a quiet walk through Millfield's small downtown. The streets were mostly empty, the storefronts closed for the night, but there was a palpable sense of hope in the air that hadn't been there when Eleanor arrived. Do you think we can really make a difference? Eleanor asked softly. Not just here, but in all the communities like this around the world? Gabriel considered the question seriously. Not overnight, not everywhere, but yes, I believe we can catalyze meaningful change. The right resources, combined with local talent and commitment, can transform communities. He glanced at her. Your story is proof of that. Eleanor nodded, understanding the truth in his words. Her own transformation had begun with one unexpected opportunity. One door that opened when she'd made a simple mistake. I never thanked you properly, she said suddenly. Gabriel looked puzzled. For what? For taking a chance on me that day in the hotel. For seeing potential when others might have seen only a mix-up. Gabriel smiled. One of those rare, genuine smiles that transformed his usually serious expression. "It was one of the best decisions I ever made." He paused, then added, "Though I can't take all the credit, you were the one who had the courage to walk through that door." As they continued their walk under the stars, Eleanor reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought her here. From a woman desperate for any job to the co-founder of a global foundation. From knocking on the wrong door to opening doors for others. Life rarely followed the paths we planned. Sometimes it led us to unexpected doors, unexpected opportunities, unexpected partnerships. The key wasn't to avoid mistakes, but to recognize when a wrong turn might actually be leading you exactly where you needed to go. Eleanor Mitchell had knocked on the wrong hotel door and found not just a job or a career, but her purpose. Now, through the Whitaker Mitchell Foundation, she would help others find theirs, creating a ripple effect of opportunity and transformation that would extend far beyond anything she could have imagined on that fateful day when a simple mistake changed everything. Because sometimes, the wrong door turns out to be exactly the right one. And sometimes, a single moment of serendipity can change not just one life, but countless others. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.